Jared Diamond, national baseball writer, Wall Street Journal, World Series tomorrow night, Game 6, right here on 97.3 ESPN. While many people may be not watching this series in terms of the ratings, it has been a very entertaining one. But there's so many questions like, what if the Rays win this thing? What kind of message is that for baseball? Is that a good message, bad message? What do you think?
To be fair, the
Rays
Dodgers
win this World Series. I know the Dodgers, but I don't think the perception is the Dodgers are this analytical team.
Well, they
spend a lot of money.
Yeah,
That's why.
took the Rays front office, though, and it's like the same guys. That's why I think this is so intriguing. When you dive deeper, you're seeing the same mindset of these two clubs. One has a lot of money to spend, one doesn't. So it's the same approach through both teams.
It is, but the Rays I don't know how many people in the listening audience could name a Ray before this game. Good or bad for baseball? Let's get into the series. It's been great. Jared Diamond, Wall Street Journal, joins us now, the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. And there's so much. The series has been so entertaining, Jared. And obviously, the Dodgers' huge payroll, much more recognized. What do you think? If the Rays could win this thing, does baseball, you know what? That's a great story for us. Are they not getting behind that too much?
I think there's a lot of people in baseball who secretly, probably wouldn't say it publicly, but would absolutely love to see the Rays win the World Series. Baseball has tried to sell for decades that money does not matter, that payroll is not an indicator of success on the field. I mean, that's just a lie. It's completely untrue. Payroll is perhaps the single biggest driver of success in baseball here in reality, but MLB needs to sort of sell this idea to fans of small market teams that, no, you could win without competing. Don't worry. Well, the Rays winning would certainly show that at least this year it was true. And it also probably would go a long way with other owners who are thinking about, should I spend money on this free agent this winter? Well, why do I need to do that? The Rays just won the World Series. So clearly I don't need to spend on this player. I'll just hire some smart people to figure out a way to game the system. So, look, I do believe that there's a lot of people on the ownership side secretly rooting for the Rays to win this thing.
Here would be the next question then. We always say, like in the NBA, you can't try to out-Warriors the Warriors. They've got these two great all-time shooters. It's hard to build a team that does what they do. Are other teams capable? Can you just go find front offices that can do what the Rays have been able to accomplish?
Teams have been trying. It's how Andrew Friedman ended up with the Dodgers. It's how Chaim Bloom ended up with the Red Sox. It's how James Click ended up with the Astros. All of these guys came from the Rays, and I am sure that Eric Neander, the current Rays GM, is going to be on the short list for future big market GM vacancies over the next few years. Every team sees the Rays as the model. They are the model for all of Major League Baseball in many ways, because they have accomplished so much with so little. We talk about the Oakland A's, who they're an amazing organization. Don't get me wrong, the Moneyball A's, but the A's have done more with less. They've now been in the World Series twice in the last 12 years. They spend even less than the A's ever have. It really is incredible that the Rays keep doing what they do. They've now done it for over a decade pretty consistently. And look, every other team is certainly paying attention.
What is your take on the Dodgers kind of, I don't want to say conceding, but deciding to go with these bullpen games? I mean, is that something, if you didn't watch them all season long, is this a little bit of a surprise that here in the biggest moments they're kind of saying, I don't want to say they're punting the games, but they've decided to take on a different identity?
Yeah, game 2 for the Dodgers in this series was a mess. For them to try to bullpen with Tony Gonsolin and Dustin May, it didn't work out at all. It was a total failure, and I didn't understand at the time. The Dodgers had the best starting rotation ERA in the National League in 2020. They had 6 really good starters, and then suddenly they got into the postseason and decided, okay, we're going to use Walker Buehler, we're going to use Clayton Kershaw, and everybody else we're going to just bullpen with. Well, it hasn't really worked, and they have started to go away from that a bit. We saw them use Julio Urias a bit more like a regular starter the other night. I actually don't think they're going to bullpen the same way they did in game 2 tomorrow. It seems to be the plan with Tony Gonsolin on regular rest is to let him pitch as a regular starter as much as possible. Dustin May really won't be available for too long after his outing yesterday, and I think that's the right call. Let Gonsolin try to make a regular start and see how it goes. It worked during the regular season. It might just work against the Rays in the World Series too.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I can't wait to see that matchup tomorrow. Now, Clayton Kershaw, he had a phenomenal first start in the series. Yesterday, 5 2/3, 5 hits, 2 earned runs. Roberts pulled him kind of early. Let's say the Dodgers do fall in this World Series in 7. Would his 2 outings be enough with that conversation of playoff Kershaw?
That conversation's never going to go away. Let's be honest. He's been doing this for too long. He's too deep in his career, I think, for that conversation to just end. In part because at this point in his career, he's 32 years old. He's now been doing this for 13 years. He's never going to have a postseason where he's going into the 8th inning of games and he's doing what Madison Bumgarner did for the Giants and throwing complete games in the postseason, coming out of the bullpen, throwing 5 innings. It's just not going to happen. He's just not that guy anymore. So unfortunately, I don't think he's ever going to fully sort of shake that reputation, but certainly the fact that he's had a good World Series, that there's a very good chance he finally gets that ring, it'll certainly quiet the conversation. I think people realize at this point that, look, Kershaw's playoff resume is not all terrible. It's certainly not as great as you would hope for someone as amazing as he is in the regular season. But he's also had a lot of fantastic outings in the playoffs. And I just don't think Clayton Kershaw has anything left to prove. He's one of the greatest pitchers of all time. He's easily the best pitcher of his generation. And that ring will just be sort of the icing on the cake that would just further solidify that in spite of all this conversation about his struggles.
Jared Diamond, national baseball writer from the Wall Street Journal. What is your take on what was Margot trying to do last night? I mean, did he go on his own? Did they see something there? I mean, that's a huge play in the game, him trying to steal home.
Yeah, that was all Manuel Margot. That was not called from anybody. That was Margot believing that he had Clayton Kershaw timed up. Look, anyone that's watched Clayton Kershaw pitch knows when he pitches out of this stretch, he has this sort of whole rhythm with his hands. He brings his hands high over his head. He slowly brings them down. He's not facing the runner at third, of course. And we've seen other runners in the past sort of dance around third during this time, and almost as if they're toying with the idea. Only one other player, to my knowledge, has tried it, and it was Carlos Gomez a few years back when he was with the Astros, who also got thrown out. So, look, it didn't work, but on the other hand, it was probably the most exciting moment of that game. If it had worked, we would be talking about it forever. It would have been an all-time great play. And frankly, even though it failed, it is really one of those super memorable moments of this World Series that I imagine just watching that as a fan was so thrilling. Just that whole experience, then scratching your head afterwards going, what just happened? And hey, it was really close. He was, a couple of inches away from pulling off a play that we'd be talking about for the rest of the time. So while it didn't work, I'm also really happy it happened because baseball needs more plays like that, daring, exciting, sort of bang-bang athletic plays.
Yeah, I thought if they caught him safe at home, maybe they would have a tough time overturning it, although you might have been able to. It was super close. I want to get your thoughts on Game 4, the ending, Brett Phillips, and I also want to get your thoughts on would you have pitched to a Rosarina there? They kind of pitched around him and essentially said, we're going to walk you anyway, but you would have put the guy on second base, and you would have never known. And as you saw, Brett Phillips getting the hit was all they really needed, even though it needed help with a lot of the errors in play as well. So your overall thoughts on that situation and how it played out?
Yeah, look, I'm not going to defend. I'm not here to defend Kenley Jansen. He's been bad throughout his playoff career, and he was not good the other night. But he approached that at bat with a Rosarena, I think, the right way. He actually got ahead of him 1-2, which was amazing in and of itself. Rosarena took a strike that he probably should have swung at. All of a sudden, he's behind. Now, when you're ahead 1-2, if you're Jansen, you simply cannot give in to a Rosarena. If he hits a home run or something like that, it is a complete disaster. The strategy for the Dodgers going into this series clearly was force any other member of the Rays to get a big hit, because all through the postseason, No one else did. They've reached this point with virtually no offense except for one guy. So you really cannot let that one guy be the thing that sinks you in the World Series. So I don't have a problem with the way Jansen pitched him, especially once he got ahead. Obviously, that fourth ball was not a good pitch. I'm sure he didn't mean to bounce it like that. But look, what are you going to do? Brett Phillips was the matchup you wanted. He was a career 202 hitter. You simply don't expect him to get it done in that spot. He's the last player the Rays want to be batting in that spot, and he came through, and the Dodgers melted down. I don't know what else Jansen could have done, because if he gives up a 2-run homer or Rose Arena on that spot, even an RBI double, I think everyone for the rest of time is asking him, what were you thinking throwing a ball anywhere near the plate to that guy?
If you were managing the Dodgers, would you go back to Jansen in any of these 2 games remaining?
They didn't last night.
I am sure that the plan would be not to go to him in the ninth in a close game. I just don't see any way they would. But look, I don't think the plan necessarily was to go to him in a 1-run game in the ninth and game 4. They were out of options. They already had used Trinan. They already had used most of their guys. When they got to the 9th inning, a 1-run game, their choices basically were Jansen or Joe Kelly, both of which I can imagine giving Dodgers fans highs. So they went with the guy who's been there before. So I don't really blame them. I think ideally they don't end up in that situation. They're not going to their bullpen as early. They're not required to use Gratterall and Trinan and these other guys just to get to the 9th. That was really a product of the fact that it was such a high-scoring game and their pitchers were just generally struggling. They went to Trinan last night in a safe situation, and I would expect if there's another one, Trinan would be their first choice again. But knowing Dave Roberts, he won't hesitate to bring him in a big spot earlier. So it really just depends on how the game is going.
Yeah, and not to mention, as you're running out of games here, you have more availability from guys who started games that you might be able to. I mean, you saw May come in the game last night, and I would imagine if there is a game 7, they would you would see May possibly even start that game.
Yeah, well, look, if you go to game 7, you have Walker Buehler back, so you don't need to worry about a starting pitcher for game 7.
That's true.
They'll have their guy, but we definitely are in a place where everyone is going to be available. If they go to a game 7, I'm sure Clayton Kershaw will be available to come out of the bullpen. Dustin May, honestly, could be available as soon as tomorrow for a little bit. Plus, don't forget you have Julio Urias, who started game 4, was quite good. He will now be on 2 days of rest heading into tomorrow, so you'll probably have him available. Look, we're heading into game 6 and 7 of the World Series. I don't think anybody is unavailable when you get to such important games.
Do you think it's weird, though, to not start Buehler on short rest for game 6? Do you think it's weird to not try and put him away?
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. It's similar to the conversation about why didn't they go to Buehler on short rest in game 2 instead of the bullpen game that they did. And I understand what they're thinking. I'm sure their concern is, look, if we go to a game 7, if we start Buehler on short rest in 6, putting him in a position where he won't be at his best, and we lose. And then we go to game 7, then we're really in trouble. I think they feel like they have a nice safety net here where they'll go to Gonsolin. And look, I know Gonsolin isn't bad in the postseason, but this guy was great in the regular season. He was excellent. He was one of their best pitchers. It's not like they're running out some guy off the street in this game in spite of his struggles so far in October. But even if they lose, they will have their best pitcher this season in Walker Buehler, a guy who early in his career has already looked like one of these classic big game pitchers. Has been absolutely incredible in the postseason in the early part of his career on full rest against Charlie Morton. I think that's sort of what you have to prepare for. Doesn't mean they don't think they're going to win tomorrow. I hope and believe they're going to use Gonsolin differently, that it's not going to be you're going to face 4 batters and come out. But even if it sort of doesn't work out, they must like their chances with their ace on the mound on game 7.
Well, and if you are Tampa, you got to feel good with Blake Snell going. But if they were to win this game, where did they go in game 7?
Well, they'll have Charlie Morton back. It'll be a rematch of, I guess, game 3, which was Morton versus Buehler. Of course, Charlie Morton has also had a lot of great success in big games, in game 7s. He was amazing in game 7 against Houston. He was the last pitcher to pitch for the Astros in Game 7 in 2017. So certainly not a guy that's unfamiliar with the big spots. So it would be a great matchup if we get to that point. I'm sure the Dodgers don't want to end up in the position, even with Buehler, where they are sort of having to be in that do or die game. Because let's face it, the Dodgers have played better in this series. It's in a way kind of amazing that it's even 3-2. It seemed like the Dodgers were going to run away with this thing, and yet it's now really competitive, and it no longer matters that sort of on paper the Dodgers have played like the better team pretty much all series.
It has been a really fun series, and as you mentioned, the Rays are one of those teams. Like, I think most people out there watching they're probably watching the series if they did jump in thinking, who are these guys? I mean, they just are, and they do it from different angles. And then, of course, you watch a game and they're pitching different guys. Their bullpen is outstanding. They are a lot of fun to watch. And then you have this team, the Dodgers, who have all the star power. It is a really yin and yang of this World Series, but it's been a great one. Let me get a couple of quick thoughts on the offseason. Here in Philly, obviously, you mentioned Neander. Would he be a guy that would make a lot of sense for Philadelphia?
Certainly, if you're a big market team looking to pluck from outside the organization, Neander is going to be one of the top candidates, I think, on every team's mind. That I'm sure includes the Phillies. Who knows what happens? I don't know precisely what the Phillies are looking for specifically, but I have no doubt that Neander is one of those guys that any team in the market for GM will be looking at. And if you're Eric Neander and you're thinking about trying to find a big market home, the year after your team goes to or wins the World Series seems like sort of the right time to strike.
I know free agency seems like it's a way off, but any sense on where or if JT Realmuto is done in Philadelphia?
I don't think it's a given. The reality is this market's going to be brutal for free agents. I think everybody in the industry is gearing up for a really cold free agent market. Owners are not going to want to spend money after the year they all just had. You look around the industry, every team pretty much is laying off large chunks of their staff, which certainly doesn't bode well for those owners. Then after laying a lot of people off, then let's spend $180 million or $150 million on a free agent. So whether that helps the Phillies bring Realmuto back, we'll see. I think we're going to see a lot of certain players consider sort of one-year pillow deals. We're going to see players sort of sign sort of more creative contracts than they might have in the past, just because this is not going to be a normal free agency, in large part because we still have no idea what even 2021 season is going to look like. Like, this has gone great, and baseball's really fortunate that it's made to this point and gotten through the 2020 season. But let's face it, the pandemic is still raging. It's getting worse around most places in the country right now. So anyone that tells you that 2021 baseball season is going to be normal is just wrong. There's no possible way it's going to be normal. And that much uncertainty doesn't really lend itself to going out there and spending a lot of money in the free agency.
All right. It's been a great series. Tomorrow night right here on 97.3 ESPN, it's the Rays and Dodgers, game number 6. He's Jared Diamond, national baseball writer from the Wall Street Journal, and he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Thank you, Jared.
You got it. Thanks.
Great stuff as we get you ready for Game 6 tomorrow night.